Have you ever read a book? The reason I ask is because the best way to describe The Last of Us is that it plays out like a book. Allow me to explain. For starters, this game contains over 1 billion words in dialogue, environments, and the notes you collect. But that's not really my point. Comparing this game to a book is the best way to describe it because when we read, the pace at which we finish the story is in our control. You could either be a fast reader or a slow reader. It could either take you a day or a year to read a book completely. But if you compare it to a movie, everyone takes the same amount of time to watch the same movie. But not everybody's going to take the same amount of time to read the same book. Haters will say every game's pace is in your control. But again, not every game has 1 billion words and dives deep into characters like this one. Check out my video on why this game is hated and the other one on why it can't be copied. But do that after this video because what I'm about to say is important. Subscribe. The best way to describe this game is a book with pictures, to be specific. The cutscenes would be the pictures that open and close chapters, and the gameplay and the dialogue used are the words that frame everything and progress the story. A lot of the times when we read, we don't understand certain words or we skip reading them completely. And missing out on notes and other interactions and not knowing how they relate to the story and the characters in The Last of Us would be a digital manifestation of skipping words when you're reading. I think the reason people love saying this game is a movie is because Uncharted is the first game that played like a movie, and Naughty Dog made both of these games. But again, I'd say The Last of Us is the first book that you could play. Usually when we talk about movies, we should talk about it from the theater experience because this is how movies were intended to be watched. One time without the option of pausing, rewinding, or anything. TiVo and the internet ruined the cinematic experience in that regard, at least for the first experience, obviously. Keyword is being experienced though. Being able to stream this game and watch people play online is one of the main reasons why people call this game a video game movie. Like when you're doing a gameplay walkthrough and there's a lot of gameplay episodes, the game would feel like a show if you watch it like that, but you're supposed to experience it yourself, like a book. This video game is like a book that you could play. Instead of describing the scene in great detail like an author would, the developers just provide the scene with great detail, and unlike a movie, your interpretation and time spent with these details are dependent on the players. The Last of Us uses a lot of cinematic techniques, especially in the cutscenes, but not only does most of the story unfold during gameplay sections, but the gameplay does most of the heavy lifting in terms of immersion and emotionally syncing the player with the characters. If you manage to be fully invested in the world, story, and characters by the end of the game, you would feel a personal connection to the story, characters, and the game itself. A feeling similar to having a favorite book. And the reason you feel like that is because of the time you put into it. This again is if you were fully invested in the world, characters, and the story. Which is why spoilers take away a lot of the magic, for a lack of better words. You could tell from the amount of The Last of Us content on YouTube alone that this game is hard to describe and therefore difficult to fully understand. So no spoiler will actually live up to the actual experience of the events that take part in the story. But it's better to go in blind. The game puts you in the character's shoes in a way that no book, TV show, or movie can ever do. And if we're being honest, no video game comes close to doing what this game does. I'll keep on saying it. This game is the first immersive, interactive, cinematic experience. I know saying cinematic sounds counterintuitive after trying to call this game a book, but I think being able to call this game a book, a game, a movie, speaks volume to how rich the world, characters, and writing are. People say God of War is better, and if you're a gamer, I think you kind of have to think that, seeing as how God of War has a more interesting world, deeper and more diverse combat mechanics, but its story is more vague, dull, and even more simple. The characters are far less relatable, but it's understandable given the lore and fantastical world. They couldn't really reinvent characters because of the pre-established lore. You can't make them more relatable. So, yeah. Anyways, this video is getting all over the place, so let me back to the next time someone asks if you should play this game, tell them it's like a book, or you could tell them it's like a movie. Either way. The reason I say this is because a book kind of plays like a movie in your head. And by that logic, the first movie ever must have felt like a book that you could see. But if a book uses a bunch of words to convey ideas or an image in your head, and a picture says 1,000 words, what about a video? Or a video game? This is why The Last of Us is hard to describe. It's a story you experience and the first immersive interactive cinematic experience to exist. The Last of Us pushed the limits of storytelling in gaming in 2013, and the game still holds up better than any other game that tries to replicate what it did. In conclusion, the game has 1 billion words in it and uses chapters, so it's a book. Subscribe. Basically, The Last of Us is the most engaging story to ever exist. I'd say one of the most engaging stories. The reason why is because it's designed around the player itself. To be more specific, people who like video games. Because the creators said that they made games that they'd like to play themselves. And video game creators obviously are video game players. Just further down the line, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, it's the most engaging story to ever exist. And the characters and the world are extremely understandable. This is what makes it engaging. So like, for instance, you could just take this at any point in the story, but the easiest one is the beginning. Like, you're going to want to carry your daughter. I talk about this in my Joel versus Tommy video. I think it's how Joel ended up alone. But just carrying your daughter around, everybody would want to carry their daughter around, especially in times like that. And then the guy following his job, he's following orders. He low-key saved Joel's life because those runners were on him, those 2 runners. And like, he had to try to shoot Sarah and Joel. That was also part of his job. Tommy, like, everybody has understandable. It's understandable for each of them in their position. Like, maybe you specifically wouldn't do that, but like, it's understandable. You could see why somebody would do those things. But what makes it the most engaging is actually walking through and seeing that experience. You actually feel that. You have a deeper understanding to why you would be willing to, quote unquote, risk humanity for this strange little girl. When you walk through the shoes, like, it becomes understandable. You're like, oh, she never had a life to live. Oh, like, you know, why were you gonna kill her without giving her a chance to say goodbye or to choose? Like, all those feelings are valid, and they're all understandable. Anyways, this is why it's a book. A movie can't really convey that at all. The closest you could do it with is like a show or a series of movies, like The Lord of the Rings. I never really got into that, but I can see why people like those movies a lot. But again, The Lord of the Rings started as a book. So yeah, this game is like a book. I don't know what else to say. Maybe leave a comment if I forgot anything. Please watch the videos in full, other videos, and yeah, subscribe to the channel. See you next time.